Good morning, friends, and welcome. Welcome to our second COVID Beat webinar. And I must tell you, the name COVID Beat was given by none other than our Director Medical Services, Dr. Shweta, who's also a moving spirit behind this webinar series. So this is our second COVID Beat webinar. Conducted on behalf of RAC Hospital and ARISE, UNDRR, which is the UN organization that deals with critical issues. In the first webinar, we spoke about an introductory aspect of what COVID-19 is. Dr. Shweta spoke about that, and the various lifestyle remedies that we could offer. Now, the second seminar, which is today, has an exciting range of subjects. Our topic is the effect of long COVID on brain and emotions. And we have Dr. Shweta, who is a neurologist, who will talk about the effect on the brain. And we will have Dr. Savita, an eminent psychologist, who will talk about the effect of COVID on our emotions. So let's go right ahead now and get on with this 1-hour webinar series. And in order to do that, I will start with introducing Dr. Shweta. Now, friends, Dr. Shweta, as I see, has studied in the United States and in Cambridge, that's the United Kingdoms, and her specialization is neurology. She is also the medical director of our own RAC Hospital and a whole brain practitioner. She has worked in several countries, and that includes Canada, South Africa, Africa, the continent per se, the Middle East, and of course, in India. She has over 40 scientific publications and has written 2 books, including many chapters in other books on neurology. She is a TEDx speaker on the impact of the brain. She has other interests. She's an avid traveler, has traveled over 30 countries, and it's mentioned till date, which means there are several more in the future. And excitingly, she is a past life hypnotherapist, trained under the world-famous pioneer, Dr. Brian Weiss. Dr. Shweta has conducted over 200 workshops. I've listened in to some of her programs, and they are very exciting. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Dr. Shweta.
Thank you very much, Professor Kennedy. It's always a joy and pleasure to welcome all of you. Welcome, Dr. Savita, for this, I think, a very, very important start to this COVID Beat webinar series. I think we are talking 2 main issues, which is brain and emotions. Thank you to all the participants and all the participants who are viewing us on the recording. I will be sharing my screen. If Dr. Wilco, you can allow me to share the screen, please. I think we are still going through this horrific pandemic, and we all are wishing, as a team of RAC Hospital, as part of this COVID Beat webinar series, that we continuously update you to the latest in the field of COVID, what is happening. And particularly my job as a brain specialist is to talk about the brain. Now, I hope you can see my slides, and please, Dr. Wilco, just tell me if you can hear me well, if you can see the slides well. Everything is fine? Dr. Wilco, am I audible, and are the slides visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I always call myself as a neurologist, but I like to be sharing my own love. I actually call that I have romance with the brain. Now, brain is essentially something fantastic. You know, it is indeed the master of our lives.
Only Shweta on the thing.
Just some information which will transfer why I love the brain so much. I'm sure after listening to this you will also fall in love with the brain. Now, brain essentially has about 86 billion neurons, and if you were to count the number of the neurons, you would spend approximately 3,000 years doing that. It has information traveling at a massive speed of 260 miles per hour, which is the speed of the bullet train. And it has more than 100,000 chemical reactions which are occurring every second. There are 10,000 different types of neurons, or the brain cells, so to speak. Neuron is nothing but a brain cell. Roughly 40 chemicals which are in the brain. And roughly, if I am thinking right now and delivering and you are listening, possibly we can light up a bulb worth of 16 watt right now. It is just 2% of the body weight, but this is very important. It consumes roughly 20% of our oxygen, which flows from the heart onto the brain. So it is very important that we know about this sort of the master organ so that we can keep it healthy, we can keep it safe, and in fact protect all the functions which it is desiring to do or which it can do, potentially do. So let me talk about the COVID and the brain. Okay, now it's real that yes, COVID is still here, COVID will be here, and despite the vaccination drives, we are seeing a lot of mutations. Mutation is nothing but the change in the virus pattern with which it is impacting us. Now, although COVID essentially is a virus, it is not limited just to your upper respiratory tract or your nose and throat and lung. It is essentially going deep within and affecting most organs in your body. Last seminar, we discussed how it essentially moves in the body and then does all the horrific stuff which it does. But let's focus today on the brain. And we see a lot of patients who have been vaccinated, who have been coming to the clinic previously with COVID, who are currently facing the COVID brand. So again, my friends, please keep your social distancing, your masks on. The COVID fight is yet not over, and which is very important to understand. Now, brain, essentially the things that we are seeing with the brain can be real. Yes, when I say real, which means essentially there is a potential that the COVID is impacting the brain structure, while it can also be pseudo. When I mean pseudo is not really false, but it can be coming from the mind, which is anxiety, which is fear, which is sort of depression, which kicks in post in the recovery phase of COVID-19. And for some people, COVID-19 has been a 2 days stuff, for some 2 weeks, for a few unfortunate 3 months. And it is these long haulers whom we consider that it is our job to take care well. And if it is a part of our family member, we have to understand what the person is going through. If it's a part of a community member, this is what we have to do. How it affects that, we will go into detail, but please understand that yes, essentially it can affect the brain structure, and also it can affect the mind. Dr. Savita will talk about it, and the stress, etc., and all, which can aggravate further recovery from COVID. Now, very, very common and loose term, which you will hear about, is brain fog. Now, all of us have brain fog at one odd point in time. It can be because of any chemical issues or metabolic issues, so to speak, or any other infection. Now, I'll tell you my own story when I had this experience of brain fog. Few years back, I was traveling, and after my travel, I sort of felt, and I was essentially traveling with my two colleague neurologists. And I told them, look, I can't think straight. I don't think so. Things are making sense to me. There is poor concentration. I'm not able to define what's happening around me. I'm not able to judge and effectively think, where my focus is lacking. And essentially all that I was talking to you about was brain fog. Now, my friends thought that, you think a lot, and as essentially neurologists, you don't need to I think you are stressed. And these were all the points which were, now I'm talking of real two neurology friends who thought I had this. I continued with that for 2-3 days, while then I said, no, I really need help. And even though I was a neurologist understanding the brain, I just walked out, went to a clinic and said that, look, I'm not feeling well. There's this brain fog happening with me. And essentially what was found later was that my phosphorus was low in the blood. And when it was fixed, I became all right. So it's very important that brain fog cannot be passed on as just any symptom and tiredness or fatigue and you will recover out of it. Essentially what it means that your cognitive processes, we call it cognitive, which means brain related, is essentially slow. The circuits in the brain are not functioning optimally, which means you cannot think right, you cannot judge right, you cannot comprehend, which means whatever is happening around you, you cannot take well. And this is what all the part of brain fog is about. Now, COVID, largely for people when the COVID is running for a few weeks to months, this is essentially a very, very, very common symptom. And we see it in the clinics. It is real. We see it in the community. My thing is, please don't be afraid about it. It essentially dwindles, it goes away, but you have to be able to identify that it is the part of the syndrome of, so to speak, the COVID recovery process. Now, how is COVID causing the damage in the brain? We discussed last time that the COVID is entering, although through the lungs or the nasopharynx. That is essentially the reason you have these swab tests, which are horrible, but this is how the COVID test is entering. And then it is causing a clot or clotting essentially in the vessels or the pipelines. The blood pipelines are getting choked or blocked. And the same thing is happening in the brain. Now, brain essentially is divided into 4 parts. And the most important front portion of the part of the brain is responsible for all the judgment, the abstract thinking, the executive functions that we do, the understanding of the social situations around us. Now, COVID essentially is causing the blocks in these fine arteries. And that is the reason why this brain fog appears. Now, although a lot of studies have been done in other mechanisms like overall affection with the COVID, which is related to low oxygen, which is from the lungs, also impacting the brain. Also, there are some neurocircuitry issues which are happening out of COVID. Now, there's been a lot of things which are happening in and around the brain to cause this. Now, this is not happening for people who quickly recover out of it. This is essentially happening for people who take a long time to recovery. I have to emphasize this point that please understand 80% of the people have no major symptoms. Out of the 20%, 15% of them could be potentially critical. And the 5% of it are the ones who have to have the hospitalization, who will need the chest tube or the breathing ventilatory support, what we call, or any other support which is in the ICU, which is in the intensive care unit. But most of you will come out of COVID. So again, the lesson or the point here is that there is no need to be panicked. There is no need to be scared, but essentially awareness is the key to anything. Just being aware. I like, somebody used to say a very nice proverb, and I've just, love it. If you are aware, you care, and then you dare. This is so crucial and important, even in terms of COVID-19. Now, what is happy hypoxia? I'm sure there are a lot of stuff which is happening on the internet, what you're reading. I think media has played a much more powerful role both ways. It's been a pros and cons of media, which we have been going through the pandemic. Now, a lot of people, there's always a short supply of these SpO2 machines, or so to speak, the finger oxygen monitoring device. Now, this is important. I would request that family members who are suffering from COVID or who have had this experience should keep it with you in case somebody who has just got infected, because in the initial phase, everything seems fine. The person is very much coherent. There is no problem. There is no breathing difficulty. There's no anxiety. There's no confusion. But at the level of the oxygen saturation, there is a drop. And any sort of drop less than 93 or 94%, what you are reading there, 99 is optimum, 9900, that is when you have to take a call. So this is very important to understand from the brain. All that is happening is the oxygenation or the low oxygen, which is causing the problems in terms of initial phase when you're completely fine. And then a stage comes when you start getting the brain fog. Now, it is also very important, and what I have seen through in last 1 year, approximately, we are now about a year, 15 months into the journey, is any time when anything new hits us, And it can be a virus, it can be a personal event, it can be a financial event, any event. We all go through this grief cycle. I'm sure Professor Kennedy and Dr. Savita would also be the masters and experts in talking about this cycle, but I'd really like to put forth that we all go through this cycle called the grief cycle. We are always in the phase of shock and denial when any new event sort of comes us, and it is imperative that anybody gets affected by this cycle. There's nobody who's immune to this phase. Then comes anger. You're obviously angry at why am I, why me is the question which you ask. Then the phase comes when you're actually depressed because there's a bit of acceptance coming in. There's a bit of dialogue and bargaining later that, why I should be the victim, why I got this, and so many things sort of start coming, and for why should I be the person who got COVID into the long hole, etc. and all. And then slowly the phase of acceptance come. And then once you accept it, you start to be aware, care and dare. The same fundamental starts working. You start to take care of yourself and things sort of simplify. Now, what we have to understand is that we have to cut short this cycle, particularly for COVID. COVID is real. COVID is impacting the brain. It is causing the problem. Let's accept it initially so that we can take the help at the right moment. Pushing things is not going to work. Now, all of you who have recovered out of COVID, I'm sure you would be able to share your stories that, yes, I went through this phase, I went through this trouble, but I am ready to take the next leap towards a healthy brain or towards a healthy life or towards a healthy body. Now, what is that you should be, whenever you're facing any of these problems? I discussed about the brain fog, but there is also the other stuff which I'll talk about. Please talk to your medical doctor. This is so important because sometimes it may be some other disease, or as I told you, in the metabolically, in the blood, something is happening which you can miss. There are some other side effects arising out of COVID, and you can be under the wrong impression that COVID alone is causing this problem. So the best thing is, please take it seriously, take it up to your doctor. Don't read Google without taking professional help. I always tell to my patients that I've become a second opinion doctor now. I'm giving my opinion after Google, and which I'm okay to do it, in my clinical setting. But it is very important you people to understand, or me for that matter, that any lines that we read, there are some in between the lines, and your doctor can actually read those in between the lines. And that is what you should do. And treat, of course, be very much aware about anxiety, depression, or any other post-traumatic stress disease. I'm sure you would have heard this. It's called PTSD, which is very important to understand. It's okay to be sad post-recovery. It's okay to be down. But however, you have to take help if it is seriously impacting your thinking. I have had two patients, which I can share. Last, I think about a month, I had two patients, two fantastic people. One was a professor and the other one was a banker, who felt, after post-recovery of COVID, who felt they were not coping up in their jobs. They thought they are not giving their best to the job as what they were doing previously. And essentially there was nothing wrong with them, but however, you have to give your body the time. You have to give your brain the time. Nothing, I know we live in this McDonald's world or the pizza world where everything gets delivered in 5 minutes and everything happens. However, brain and body take their own time to get into that healing process. And we have to understand that. All that I had to do in the clinic was to just reassure them that, look, just, of course, we do the scans. We rule out that the brain is okay. We rule out all the blood parameters and all. After that, all that is required is just hang on. That is the thing, that it will come out. You will come out. It's just a matter of some time why it is. Now, it is also, COVID is also causing many other issues like strokes or the clots in the brain. It is causing some tingling. Tingling is nothing but because of the involvement of the nerves, the long nerves. It is also causing lethargy, tiredness, sleep issues. We discussed a lot in our last webinar about the problems falling asleep, problems getting up frequently from the sleep. Yes, it's real. Again, it can either be from the brain or it can be from the anxiety or precipitation of the problem which you already were facing, which can get accelerated because of COVID. So this is what we are seeing now. Of course, if it's a stroke, when you lose an arm, etc. and all, you have to rush to the hospital. However, my suggestion is anybody who are here, whoever is in this COVID rehab scan, who have done your scan, you have answered all your questions, and if you are facing any of these problems, you have to speak to your doctor very, very clearly. But overall, some advices can help. And this is a couple of my last slides. One of them is, of course, eating healthy. I think there's a saying that whatever you eat essentially is converted into chemicals, and that is nothing but the chemicals which are here in the first brain and chemicals which are in the gut, which is called the second brain. All that you feed your second brain essentially becomes your first brain. There is a very, very interesting thing called psychoneurophysioimmunoendocrinology, which means it all starts here and sort of ends in the body. But I feel there's also one step prior to it, which is the gut. So anything that you deliver to the gut, anything healthy, will ensure that you heal fast, you heal better. Essentially, it's all those chemicals which are given back to you from the food. Of course, avoidance of all the substances which are harmful. I see a lot of people junking. I'm repeating myself. I see a lot of people junking on Panadol nights or paracetamol nights, just to quickly, get rid of all the body fatigue, pains, and go to sleep. This is not a good practice. Essentially, you are again drugging yourself without actually taking a substance drug, or so to speak, not so popular sort of a drug. Please don't do that. Sleep well, very important. All the techniques to sleep well should be understood. Participate in social interactions. Now, it can be a Zoom interaction. It's okay. I mean, unfortunately, we will have to live with this, and we will have to take help of all the technology. Interaction is very important. Social isolation can be detrimental to the brain. You have to make sure you are engaging in right kind of exercises, activities. Do something which you like, because essentially the brain wants to produce those happy chemicals. Now, we have two states. One state is called the parasympathetic state, which means everything is just right, the tone is right, the body is in the right state. And we have sympathetic, which means it's fight, flight, or freeze. It's always releasing the chemicals, gushing and rushing, so that you can fight, you can be, or you can flight, or you can freeze. This is what is happening. Now, our job is to get the parasympathetic tone set and not let the sympathetic tone overrule you. The moment the sympathetic tone rules your life, everything becomes a mess. Now, this is for general people, even without suffering from COVID. And what you have to do is to just set that tone right. And I am a great, great believer of vagal tone. And let's do 1 minute of an exercise to see what I am talking about. This is a very quick fix for anybody who's suffering from any sort of anxiety or not feeling well. And what it is doing is it's just setting your sympathetic and your parasympathetic just right. Vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body. That is sort of responsible for your parasympathetic tone, and you can set it within minutes. I think this is where we have to take help of quick things which can help us. So this is only through breathing. So all of you who are on this call, I would like to do 1 minute of this breathing, one cycle of this breathing. And let me tell the logic, and then we will begin the breathing process. We'll all do it together and then end this session. The logic is that when you breathe in and then you hold for a little time the breath, and then you let go of the breath, you are essentially stimulating that nerve which is responsible to keep the balance or the parasympathetic tone. So you breathe in for about 4 seconds, you hold it to a 7, and then you exhale out to 8. There are many, many, many versions of it, but this is the simplest technique. 4, 7, 8 breathing. So I would like all of you to please sit straight wherever you are sitting, and we will do this one cycle together. When I say inhale, you will inhale and count mentally 1, 2, 3, 4. When I say hold, you will count mentally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when I say exhale, you will exhale all the breath out. Okay? So I don't see a lot of cameras, but anyways, we will do it to whoever is visible. Let's begin. Sit straight. Let's inhale. Let's hold. And let's exhale. Please do this at least 3 or 4 times to feel the effect. Sometimes if you have the pulse reading along with you, I'm sure you can reduce the pulse from your resting heart rate about 10% easily. So This is a quick fix to the anxiety or the restlessness or the things that you are facing within yourself as a mental challenge. However, I would stop here and would be very much happy to take any questions. But to summarize that, yes, brain problems are real. Do not ignore the brain fog. It can last for a couple of months. Do not ignore any other neurological symptom, which can be tingling, which can be vision issues, which can be any other thing which is arising post-COVID, and speak to your doctor. We are always here to help. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I hand back to Professor Kennedy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shweta. Brilliant as always. Brilliant as always. I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to ask those questions later. And now we have the other side. Dr. Shweta has spoken about the brain and its functions and the effect of long COVID on the brain. We also associate the brain with various emotions. And we have with us today, we are honored to have with us today, our own consultant clinical psychologist, Dr. Savita. Dr. Savita Date is the consultant psychologist for Arabian Wellness. She has previously set up the psychiatric department in Tata Steel or in Jamshedpur, and then went on to set up the psychological aspects of medicine in the Apollo Hospitals group for at least a decade or two. And I believe she probably still associates with Apollo Life. In addition to her psychology studies, in which she has a PhD, she is also a faculty, a teacher in a program that she created or that she helped to create, and that is wellness management. It's an academic program that is taught in several universities. Dr. Savita has completed over 1,000 workshops on various subjects, and I'll name just a few: stress, behavior change, parenting, smoking cessation, work-life balance, sleep, rehab, and of course, women's health, an issue that is very dear to her. She has authored 2 books. One is a textbook that is used in our postgraduate program, and the second is a tome on health counseling. And she writes regular columns in newspapers, including the Times of India, several other newspapers, and also in the UAE in the Khalij Times. Dr. Savita is a movie star. And what do I mean by that? I mean that she has, for NDTV, she has shot 26 episodes on her subject, that is psychology, and is multilingual. She has done 13 episodes in Hindi. And all these are on psychology and wellness management. Ladies and gentlemen, there's much more to say, but I will talk about that some other time. Allow me to hand over to Dr. Savita.
Ma'am, unmute here, please. Dr. Savita, unmute, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Virku. Professor Kennedy, I was saying thank you so much for inviting me for the session. Thank you so much for your kind words. And thank you to all the participants who have taken this hour out to listen to a little bit of what we have to say on COVID. We have a little time, and so I'm going to get to it. But I do want to start by saying, Dr. Shweta, brilliant job of talking about the brain. Dr. Shweta is not only a great neurologist, she's also extremely good in the area of neuropsychology. And knowing that that's what she would be, I decided to focus on areas of psychology that may be less known or less spoken. So that's what I'm going to try and do today. The objective of my communication today is going to be to address the panic that exists the moment you talk about COVID, especially long-term COVID. So it does not mean that I am trying to undermine COVID, but what I'm trying to say is that panic is like a bad swimmer who is almost drowning. So this bad swimmer is almost drowning and will probably pull down somebody who is coming to save this person also underwater. And that is what panic does to you. Panic does not increase your efficiency. It does not increase your survival skills. It takes away from it rather. And if there is any way in which I can help you to move away from panic, because arousal is equal to panic, what we need to focus on is alertness. If you can be alert, alertness requires calmness. If you can keep your mind in a state of calmness and move away from arousal, which will take you towards a state of panic, you will be in a much better state to handle COVID or any other challenges that life may throw at you. Dr. Wilku, if you don't mind, next please. I'm only going to touch upon this slide because most of this has been covered by Dr. Shweta. As you can see, there are fewer early symptoms and a bigger bunch of later symptoms that people generally speaking tend to experience. And one of the things that you will find in common in both the areas is anxiety. There is a lot of anxiety that patients experience. Yes, they will experience depressive symptoms, brain fog, headaches, dizziness, loss of cognitive functions, loss of holding on to your concentration and focus, fumbling for words, sometimes even a feeling like I'm not able to cross the road, I am not able to do any of my day-to-day functions, so on and so forth. So there is this bunch of symptoms, but one thing that is in common that almost everybody will have is anxiety. So let's take a minute to talk about anxiety. Dr. Wilku, next please. Yeah. Many symptoms, and maybe Dr. Wilku, you can just, I don't know whether you can show the entire slide to everybody because the bottom few symptoms are getting hidden. But what you will find over here, if you take this quick test for yourself, so you can rate yourself on this long spectrum, which ranges from not at all to all the time. Ask yourself where you figure, and if in at least a few symptoms you figure all of the time or much of the time, then yes, anxiety is something that is bothering you and you do need to take a look at it. So if some of you can't see all of the symptoms, let me just touch upon them for you. One thing that you will definitely find is an inability to relax. Another thing that you will find is that your breathing gets impacted and you feel a sense of breathlessness, and you feel the need, because of shortness of breath, you feel the need to take what you think is deep breaths, but actually it's just an increase of shallow breathing. So this is how you breathe when you're in a state of anxiety. This is your state of breathing, and this state of breathing only pushes you further and further into a state of anxiety. One thing that we all feel is a tightness of muscle when you are in a state of anxiety, and the reason for that is there is a lot of oxygen and sugar-rich blood that is being sent to every part of your body, especially your muscle groups, and that makes your muscle groups tense and tight, ready for action. But we have no action that we can take. So sitting in our chair, all we can do is feel tense and tight because our muscles have become tense and tight. So these are some of the common symptoms that you feel. Overthinking is something that happens with anxiety because multiple thoughts are clouding your head. It's not a brain cloud or a brain fog, but it's multiple thoughts. And the more thoughts your brain entertains, the less clarity of thinking that you have. This is a universal rule that everybody needs to remember. So overthinking only increases anxiety. And one of the biggest symptoms with anxiety is what Dr. Shweta spoke about, that is your gut. Your stomach gets impacted. And the reason for that is that blood is being pulled away from the digestive system because the brain, the old brain is telling you that what you don't require does not need blood, and therefore the gut is not important right now. The muscles are important, the blood going all over the body is important, your eyes are important, all of this is important, the gut is not important. And so take the blood away from the gut, and as a result of that, various digestive complaints start. And the more you get into a habit of any behavior provoking your anxiety, the more gut related symptoms you eventually start having. So all of these symptoms and many more that I have mentioned over here, your throat feeling dry, for instance, you will find that, when you are getting into a presentation, you will want to have a bottle of water next to you, because there is some anxiety that you have when you're getting into a presentation. And so you want to keep sipping that water so that your throat doesn't feel dry and you are not able to finish your presentation as effectively as you would like to. Yes, Professor Kennedy, that's exactly what I was talking about. So these are some of the symptoms that you will experience with little anxiety, and more symptoms further along the continuum, that is more of the time and all of the time, with anxiety peaking in you or anxiety staying with you for a fairly long time. But let me stop you for a minute and ask you, if these are your symptoms that you have because of thoughts of COVID or somebody in the family with COVID, or perhaps you have been told that, you have been diagnosed with COVID, let's say you did an RT-PCR test and it showed that, yes, it's positive. And these are the symptoms that you have and you've been having for a while. Let me stop and ask you, imagine you are called upon to make a presentation to your corporate group, and you now have 5 minutes. Your previous speaker is finishing up, and you now have 5 minutes left to get onto the podium and talk to this large group, very senior leaders in your corporate and so on and so forth. Now ask yourself, how many of these symptoms are you having at that time? I assure you, you will be experiencing plenty of these symptoms that I just discussed, which we talked about in relation with COVID. So what I'm trying to say to you is, why panic? If you are about to make a presentation, you will have some anxiety. If you have some troubling news, you will have some anxiety. If you get into a state of helplessness, I don't know what is happening to me, I don't know how to control what is happening to me, this is a completely new situation, you will have some anxiety. So anxiety is going to be a factor in your life related to COVID. Let's not panic. In fact, let's think, how am I going to deal with this situation? Panic is only going to, anxiety, panic is only going to make you a bad swimmer about to drown. That's not what you want for yourself at all. Dr. Wilku, next, please. The thing that is happening with COVID today that is bothering us, troubling us, and in fact, I will say tiring us, is that what we thought as an acute problem, what we thought as emergency pulmonology, is now bringing in a host of medical fraternities into the treatment picture, and it is taking longer and longer. So the acute problem of COVID has now moved towards a chronic problem of COVID, with more and more medical specialists getting pulled in, with more and more knowledge coming in about the long-term impact, which perhaps was not known earlier. So as you can see over here, as many as 1 in 3 patients recovering from COVID-19, I can't read the slide myself because there is, our pictures out there, but go ahead and read that for yourself and you will see exactly what is happening. One point I do want to emphasize is that what was not perhaps known earlier is that when there is less oxygen that your brain and your body are getting, when there is less oxygen, particularly for the brain, it does not necessarily show up in injury on the outside, but there is a slow injury on the inside. And that is beginning to cause a whole host of symptoms that neurologists and most other doctors are just beginning to find out and understand. Dr. Wilku, next, please. So I'm going to talk to you about a few psychological aspects that we don't even realize are happening to us in this state of COVID. Let's talk about not knowing. I think, Dr. Wilku, my slides are the bigger slides and therefore half of it is going away. Is there any way we can move it to the left, right, or maybe just minimize it, or not minimize, but shrink it? Okay, if not, I'm just going to leave it to the participants to go through and read it. What you can see over here is that there is a lot that the medical fraternity and researchers are yet to know, are yet to find out. So many things that they have come to know, but the more they come to know, the more they have experiences, the more they realize that there are many things that they are just about finding out. It's like an iceberg. COVID is something where maybe we know more than 10%, which is what you can see of the iceberg, but there is 90% out there that is yet quite a bit of an unknown. Perhaps it's more than 10% now that we have seen, because COVID has been with us, friends, for 12, I think 15 months. So in these 15 months, a lot more of that 10% iceberg has become visible to us. But I assure you that there is a lot out there that is still unknown, even to doctors and researchers. And if it is unknown to doctors and researchers, Dr. Velku, next please, then how can it be known to the population out there who is at risk for COVID? So there is one factor called the known unknown, and then there is another factor called the unknown unknown. What's the difference between these two? So in the known unknown, we don't think it's going to happen today, tomorrow, yesterday, day before, and so on, but it could happen at some point. And therefore, if you are insuring your car, you may say, but I live in UAE and why should I insure my car for floods? But you might think you never really know. It might happen sometime, somewhere. A freak incident might just happen. So this will come into the category of a known unknown. It's unlikely to happen. It would be a rare situation. However, you can work towards reducing the risk of that very rare event that might just happen. So it could be a flood in UAE, it could be accidents, fire, theft, bad weather, or a defaulter or a supplier who has never defaulted, but you never really know. There could be an incident, and that might be the one time that your supplier defaults, and in your corporate, you run out of stationery or printing paper or whatever the case might be. So all of this will come into unknown, but it is a broad category of known unknown. I hope you understand what I mean. On the other hand, we have the unknown unknown, which means nobody knew it. Nobody in their wildest dreams could ever gesticulate and say that this is likely to happen in the world. When Germany was divided after World War II, when Germany was divided into two parts, it was tragic for families living on both sides of the wall. But it did happen that after the World War II was fought and won, countries that helped in the World War took away pieces of Germany. And when you talk about Berlin, countries like France, UK, and US took away portions of Berlin city on the west side, and US took away a portion of the city on the east side. And what happened? The Iron Curtain happened, dividing people from East Germans from West Germans. The Iron Curtain happened, and that's how the Iron Curtain started being referred to. But in a little while, what came up on the 9th of November, 1989, in 1961, what came up was the Berlin Wall. It was the cement and mortar structure that divided these two countries, and more important, that divided two people that at one time were one. Did anybody think that this was going to happen? No, nobody ever thought that this was going to happen. But more than that, this wall was finally brought down by people themselves, by the East Germans themselves. This wall was brought down on the 9th of November, 1989. About 500,000 people gathered there for 5 days. They were trying to ease all the restrictions and so on. And in the government trying to reduce the instructions, the people in the Berlin Wall and the TV that was being telecast on the west side of Germany, all these people got together. They broke all the barriers, first they broke the fences and gates, and thereafter they broke the wall brick by brick. And this incident became a complete unknown. Today, it is a known factor that is rejoiced by both countries and all the positive thinkers all around the world. The tsunami was another such unknown that happened. Not that the tsunami had never happened earlier. The tsunami had happened earlier, but the tsunami that happened off the coast of Indonesia, that was a complete unknown. So it affected many countries and the eastern side of many countries in the Indian Ocean. The power and strength, the magnitude of the earthquake that started the tsunami was 9.5 to 9.3. The waves were as fast as 500 miles per hour, and the tsunami was as high as 50 to 100 feet. It caused massive destruction all around wherever it went, from Sri Lanka to Indonesia to India to Thailand to as far out as South Africa even. So the tsunami of this magnitude was an unknown. What I'm trying to say to you, friends, is that COVID-19 was also an unknown unknown. It was not a known unknown. It was an unknown unknown, which means nobody knew what was happening in the early month or two. And as people started getting to know it, the unknown unknown started reducing. But has it completely moved away from that category? Not really. We were ill prepared. We did not know how to handle the situation as a globe, as a world, because this came into the category of an unknown unknown. And what happens when you are faced with an unknown unknown? You have tremendous emotions, and those are emotions of anxiety, worry, how am I going to handle the situation, and therefore extreme helplessness. And if we can create a worry window, whether it is within a corporate,
andun yung pang spray sa loob mo na, labas mo na lang.
I'm sure that that comment was not for me. If we can create a worry window between groups of people, and people can get together and talk, not necessarily about solutions, but just talk about the problem and the emotions that they feel as a result of the problem, a lot of anxiety and fear will start getting addressed. Dr. Wilco, next, please. Now, this is the natural order. A baby is expected to and supposed to lie on the chest of his or her mother and feel the heartbeat which the baby felt while in the womb of the mother. So this is a natural order for families to be together, huddle together, share affection with each other, give each other a feeling of security, a feeling of being cared, a feeling of comfort. This is the natural order for any community anywhere in the world. What happens when this natural order changes? Next, please. Now, this lady out here could possibly be just enjoying a moment of peace, or perhaps she has come to visit somebody who has passed away, but the picture looks like it is far away from the natural order. The picture looks like she's sitting alone. There is no peace and quiet. She seems to be, you know, a little sad, a little unhappy, so on and so forth. And the world today has experienced a moving away from the previous picture of the natural social order, perhaps to this picture. Dr. Wilco, next, please. And this is what we have become. We have all started working in an isolated environment, sometimes living also in an isolated environment where we are working from home. Earlier, some of us chose to work from home because it was convenient for us. Now, the picture has become all of us, and not just all of us, but almost all of the time. Most countries are still in that situation where all of us, all of the time, are working away from each other. We are not part of teams. We are not part of the larger organization. And therefore, the work, the social distance, the social isolation, the caring exceedingly for the family, the lack of support, all of that is beginning to take a very, very heavy toll on our emotions. Now, I must also tell you, friends, there are some people who are extroverted. They are feeling the impact of it the most because they want to be with people. So they are feeling a sense of irritability, a sense of increasing anger, angry outbursts, short-temperedness, so on and so forth. Then there are people who are introverted, who like to be just with their family, and they're actually enjoying this time. They are thinking to themselves that I would never have got this 1 year with my family where I would not need to ask for family time. It would automatically be available to me. So I finish my work, our family sits together, all of us eat together, and so on and so forth. And in fact, a client of mine said to me that I couldn't have asked for a blessing like this because my son is going to move away to college after a year, and I have actually got to spend more time in this 1 year than I could ever have got. So a lot of people with different kinds of emotions, but a lot of emotionality is something that has definitely been experienced during this entire moving away from the natural social order. Next, please. So what this slide shows is that when we started off with the isolation, we decided that, okay, this is a new thing. We have to deal with it. There is some anxiety, but let's tighten our belt and let's deal with this situation. And at that time, when we decided to deal with our situation, our efficiency and our performance in dealing with the situation started rising. As you can see in the graph, that the graph starts rising, which means that we all started becoming pretty good at adhering to rules where a government would tell you what to do and many citizens would say, why should we? For the first time, citizens came together and said, no, we should. The government means well, and we should follow what the government is saying. It is actually in our best interest. And so therefore, our efficiency and our performance in dealing with this absolute unknown started increasing, and we started becoming more and more efficient. And time kept passing by. And the challenge that we were being put under was nowhere near going. We thought that it would be a month, it would be a few months, it would be a year, and it is still there with us. And therefore, what is now happening, friends, is that we have started moving to the other side of the curve. So the other side of the curve is where you finally start feeling a sense of tiredness, and that is followed by fatigue. And that fatigue is emotional fatigue. It is also physiological fatigue. So you start feeling a sense of fatigue, and finally you start approaching a state of burnout where you come to a point where you just couldn't care less about what is happening. This is a bit of an alarming state, because in that state of couldn't care less, you might undo all of the good that has been done by yourself and by people around you in this entire period. So we are all approaching a state of burnout, and it is natural that we will move towards that state because we are all tired. We want to see the end of this calamity that has attacked us, every part of the globe. But this is still not done, and we do need to hold ourselves together. Remember, friends, anxiety is equal to panic, is equal to a bad swimmer drowning. Let's not go into that situation. Next, please. I have a quick exercise over here, and I wonder whether you can see the I factors, and on the other side are the they factors. And if you can look over here, you will realize that out of these factors, that there are some factors that are I factors because I can control them. And there are others which are they factors, which means I may have limited control over them. I may be able to influence them, but I definitely am not in control of those factors. So you can take a quick look and you can decide what are your I factors, what are the they factors, and especially for you, what are your challenges? What are you spending more time working on the I factors, or are you spending more time working on the they factors? And why do I ask you this? Dr. Wilco, next, please. The reason I ask you this is the more time you spend on I factors, the more time you spend on areas and situations that are within your control. And therefore, that can only take you to a state of positivity, towards being in charge, towards being capable of managing and handling a situation. But the more time that you spend on factors that are not in your control, that are they factors. For instance, if I fuss a lot about the present, it's good for me because then I can deal with the present even better. But if I fuss a lot about the past, there is no control that any human being has ever had over the past. And therefore, all it is going to take me is towards a realization that I can't do anything, time is lost, I'm not in control of the situation, and it will move me towards negativity, and my self-talk will become a negative self-talk. I'm going to run now very quickly because I think I have way overshot my time. So I'm going to skip a little bit. Dr. Wilco, next, please. And therefore, all these factors of unknown, alone, isolated, burnout, all of these factors will take me towards a negative self-talk. My negative self-talk, if I can manage to change that, then you will move towards that which is in your control. So that which is in your control, you can do it and you can do it well. How can we do that? If, let's say, you tell yourself, I can't do it, and you decide I have to change the script, and you say, well, from I can't, let me change the script and move to I can try. And from there, I can move to I think I can manage a little bit. And I think can manage another little bit. And then finally, I keep on taking a management step one after the other. And what you have done is you have changed the script, you have changed the self-talk, you have moved away from negativity, and you have actually changed the entire story. Next, please. Dr. Wilco, next, please. So Just take a quick look. I'm not going to talk about this. Just take a quick look. Some of these have already been covered by Dr. Shweta. Friends, I must tell you, if you can't handle a situation alone, you have to go to a professional. Just as you have to go to a medical doctor, you also have to go to a psychologist. And a lot of therapy is going to be extremely beneficial for you. You might need some medication if required, then you will be advised that medication. You don't try to become the doctor, let the professionals do their job. Go through therapy if required, go through medication, and also support yourself with all the other things that is mentioned over here. That is sleep, your stress management and coping skills, nutrition, exercise. And I must tell you, friends, people think that exercise is meant for the body. Not enough is known about exercise from the psychological exercise aspect. So I always say that exercise is actually more beneficial to the brain than it is to the body, because the amount of changes that exercise brings about to your neurochemicals and hormones is what otherwise medication would have been required to do. So exercise is a gift, an antidepressant that you're giving to yourself. Why should you stop yourself from getting an antidepressant which is completely internal? Next, please. Dr. Wilku, next, please. And my last but one slide, there are many relaxation and meditation techniques that are mentioned over here. Sleep is nature's best form of relaxation meditation technique. So our ancestors did not necessarily need meditation, breathing exercises, visualization, because they were good at sleeping. Modern human beings have become not so good at sleeping, and therefore we need a lot more techniques to support us. So go ahead and pick up a breathing exercise, go ahead and pick up a visualization, whatever it is that works for you, but bring in a regular practice of relaxation techniques, meditation. What it is going to do is it is going to bring a greater sense of calmness in your brain. And like I said right in the beginning, a calm brain has clarity of thinking. You are in charge of your own self. You can move towards managing your emotions and your situation much, much better. Next, please. And friends, this is my last slide of a horse telling this young boy over here, if you don't know what is out there and you don't know whether you should be going far, all you are capable of taking is one step. So let's do what we are capable of doing, and that is take one step. And after we take one step, we will figure what the next step is, and we will take that together. And that's the exact same story when it comes to COVID-19, friends. Let's take the steps that we know. What is unknown out there, we are all discovering together. It's not that it is unknown only for you or somebody else. We are all in this together. We will keep discovering the unknown more and more. Let us focus on the known, and let us focus on what we can control and manage, rather than worry about what is completely unknown and therefore not in our control at all. Thank you so much, friends, for your time. And I'm going to hand over to Professor Kennedy and Dr. Wilku.
Dr. Savita, thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, life-changing advice. Thank you ever so much. I would love to have asked many questions, but I will leave that to the audience. Permit me to introduce Dr. Wilku. Dr. Wilku is a prime mover in this webinar series. He is an ACLM, that would be the American Council of Lifestyle Medicine, and an ACPM, which is also a US certified practitioner in lifestyle medicine and a specialist in corporate wellness. He studied homeopathy, and he has done several degrees in lifestyle medicine also. He has evaluated, counseled, and worked with over 65,000 corporate employees. He touches almost 100 lives a day with counseling in several areas of lifestyle, including COVID. He has also delivered over 2,600 talks, not only in English for corporates, but also in the local language for many of the workers, and he talks often about chronic disease management. Dr. Wilku is also a faculty for the Preventive and Promotive Healthcare Postgraduate Diploma Program. He has worked with the Apollo Hospitals Education Research Foundation and also the RAC Medical Health Sciences University. Dr. Wilku is the one who is actually putting this entire program together, and now he will manage the question and answer session. Dr. Wilku, with you, sir.
Thank you, Professor. First of all, I would like to thank you, Dr. Shweta and Dr. Savita, both of them, for a fantastic presentation and putting in easy words to understand everyone. We have received many questions, but I will take a few in the chat first. Yeah. One, Mr. Harsahaj is asking, what is PTSD? Dr. Shweta has already mentioned it, but he is asking, what is PTSD? How to manage? Is medication required for it?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. Post-traumatic stress disorder. This started in US veterans when they were fighting wars, etc. When they were seeing the war images, the images used to play as a flashback. It used to be like a memory of those bad instances which was happening, and they were feeling that you are still living or reliving that experiences. That's when the stress was felt, and this term called post-traumatic stress disorder was posed. Now, even if you're going through COVID, where you had fever, you had loss of smell, you were lying in the bed, and you felt very weak, your body, even after a few weeks to months, can replay the same feelings and replay the same thoughts, and you can be feeling stressed by it, and that is called PTSD. A part of it is very common, but if it persists, if it interferes in your daily life, if it is causing challenges, then please take help, and it can be easily treated by the medicines, by other lifestyle factors.
And Dr. Wilku, if I may add.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, sure.
Dr. Shweta has already talked so much about PTSD. Earlier, it was thought that this was only felt by war victims. Later, it was realized that if you have gone through any major traumatic event in your life that you had no idea how to deal with, for instance, rape victims, survivors of a massive natural disaster like a tsunami or a flood or something, all of these today are commonly understood to be suffering from PTSD, because it's not that they otherwise had psychological issues, but the massive event that has traumatized their life is considered to be PTSD. And it would be well advised for people who are diagnosed with PTSD to perhaps go through a combination of therapy and medication. Medication might last for a little time, but they might perhaps benefit a great deal from a combination therapy of medication as well as a therapy. Friends, talk therapy works a great deal, and PTSD victims need a lot of talk therapy because sometimes they even have delusions and hallucinations. So please don't take this lightly. If you are experiencing any symptoms of PTSD, you must bring yourself forward to a neurologist, a psychiatrist, and a psychologist for therapy and treatment.
Yeah, one more question which is connected with the same PTSD. Harshad is asking, after recovery from COVID, he still feels weak. Is medication required for it?
Yes, it's very common to feel weak, as we said, fatigue, tiredness. So multivitamins, good food, fresh air, relaxation is all the remedy for it. It will go away eventually. That's the good news.
Okay. Ma'am, there is one more question. Mr. Vetri Chelvan Francis is asking, I have lost smell during COVID. 2 months, maybe 2 months earlier he had COVID. Still there is an issue with the smell. What should I do?
Thank you for asking that question. A lot of people are having the smell issues. Why it happens? Because the COVID gets inside something called as the olfactory bulb, and that bulb is nothing but the smell area or the receptors of the smell function, which gets denuded or cut, or which gets affected. Not cut really, but which gets affected. and they take long time to recover. Now, often people ask me the same question in my clinic, not just for smell, but even recovery after paralysis or stroke, even after nerve dysfunction. Now, we have to remember, friends, that nerves take a very, very, very long period to recovery. Micro-millimeter growth of the nerve a day happens. The olfactory nerve or the bulb will grow. Yes, the research says about 5 to 6 months as the median time. It can last up to a year, but it will recover. But it's just about time. So hang it on. I know taste goes because the smell goes, but you have to just be positive. Take a lot of multivitamins, nutrients, do some breathing exercises, and it will come back.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, we have received a lot of questions since support at COVID rehab program. So I'm taking few of them. One is very interesting. I think Dr. Savita will be better in answering this. One patient suffered from 6 months back. I suffered from COVID, and there was no major symptom as such. But still, I become fearful. For every second or every moment, I feel fearful. Should I consult a psychiatrist or have psychological counseling?
Yes, I think it's an excellent question. And I mean, you know, a feature that is being brought up over here. To the person who asked this question, I must say, I can feel what you are going through. Something similar to a caregiver. You know, when a caregiver is providing care to a patient who is suffering from, let's say, something as major as cancer, the caregiver never feels tired. The caregiver is working tirelessly towards supporting the patient, never feels tired. But the moment the patient recovers, the caregiver collapses. And this collapse comes when it's all done. There is no work left. It's all done. We have crossed the hill and we have come onto the other side of safe journey, let's say. But that is when the caregiver collapses, because you allow yourself the liberty to feel what you are going through only when the calamity is over. And I think to some extent, that is what is happening with you, that when you were in that situation, you were just dealing with it. You were not allowing yourself to, you know, go through the emotional aftermath, let's say, of COVID and hospitalization, treatment, medication, diagnosis of COVID, all of that. But now that it is done, now you are going through all of those emotions. And I think what you are also going through is a fear that I know what I went through the first time. The fear is that I hope I don't go through this again. So it's like a fear of anticipation, in a manner of speaking, that you are going through as well. If you take care and practice all the norms of safety, what we spoke about, the areas that are within your control, if you focus on the areas that are within your control and do the best job that you possibly can of the areas that are within your control, slowly that talk can change to a positive self-talk. However, if you feel that I think that I really need help, then the people that you need to go to are a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and definitely you will be able to overcome this situation. You will be able to, sometimes we need a helping hand. When you do need it, don't deny yourself that helping hand.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, there is one more question. There are a lot of questions, but I will take only one more because we are running out of time. I'm just clubbing two questions. One person got COVID and he was already having a sleep problem. He was on medication. Now he feels he has started becoming forgetful. Means he is doing something and mid of the work, he forgets what he exactly is doing. So is it connected to after COVID, post-COVID effect, or it's a medicine she was taking as a sleeping pill? I think both of you can answer your parts.
I think, Dr. Shweta, you can start with the neurological aspect and then I'll chip in with the psychological.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, it is possible that it's either of it. It's either the brain fog or it's the medicine effect. Sometimes the sleeping pills, also called the benzodiazepines, slow down the brain's processes. So the best is to know the dose, the type, the variety. I think best is to evaluate further. Anyways, it can be sorted. It can be solved.
Okay, and what I will say is that in this situation, a lot of us are going into overthinking, and overthinking is like a brain which is like a sponge, which has too many thoughts. There are thoughts that are going to fall by the wayside because there are only so many thoughts that the brain can naturally hold. So start moving away from the overthinking. It's not easy, but one of the things that you can definitely try is a breathing technique. If you cannot manage it, your mind is not able to focus on the breathing technique, then go for a guided breathing technique where the practitioner is giving you guided instructions that will be able to hold your attention onto the exercise. It will help you a lot in calming your mind down, reducing your overthinking a great deal.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think we can close it now because all the questions are already being asked about and addressed about. So we can reply on those mails where we get the information. And anyone, if we wants any question, if you want to ask something, still we can take one more question. If anyone wants to ask anyone.
If there are none, then I will go ahead and wrap up, Dr. Wilku. Okay.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Friends, as always, when you put Dr. Shweta and Dr. Savita together, it becomes a life-changing experience. It has happened to me before, and it has happened again once more. I've made so many notes, I just don't know where to start. But I guess I'll start from the beginning and the top. Dr. Shweta spoke about something called happy hypoxia. Well, that's a lovely term. That's a lovely term. And then what struck me in what Dr. Shweta said was that the brain and body takes their own time, even in this fast food generation. It means that our bodies have not yet adapted to this fast food generation. The other thing that delights me, because I love food as much as I do, is that Dr. Shweta says that the gut is a second brain. I must remember to tell my wife this, that the gut is a second brain. That's interesting. Now, coming to Dr. Savita, Dr. Savita spoke about individuals who have had COVID-19 and are forgetful. I must take an opportunity to get in touch with Dr. Savita sometime to advise some of us who have not had COVID-19 but are still ever so forgetful. I must take time to talk to Dr. Savita about that. But I have learned, of course, and it's I would imagine it's a justification, that my occasional angry outburst is because, very likely, according to what was mentioned today, is very likely due to me being an extrovert, and I'm suffering the effects of isolation. So I am going to ask my office colleagues to kindly forgive my angry outbursts, because I'm just an extrovert who is suffering from isolation. Those are some of the excellent new learnings I have had over this last seminar, and I would like to thank Dr. Shweta and Dr. Savita from the bottom of my heart. Or should I say from the bottom of my brain, or whatever. I'd like to thank them very much for the absolutely enlightening inputs. I'd like to thank my colleague, Dr. Wilku, for managing not only this webinar, but also the question answer series. And I'd like to thank our audience for sitting through this. I hope you have benefited from it as much as I have. And I leave you with the thought that in 2 weeks from now, we will have a new seminar, and we have new webinars like this every 2 weeks. Until then, if you need any support, please log in to our website, This is the RAC Hospital Arise website that deals with long-term COVID. And once again, friends, thank you ever so much for participating in this webinar. Thank you and good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.